raised by wolves. Here's what's coming up on the Nice Guys on Business.
When I can get out of my own myopic, egocentric view of the world and get over in your space and look and see, oh, that's where you're coming from. Now we have empathy, we have understanding, we have compassion, and we can actually come together and create a vision, again, commitment, and begin taking action in lieu of something that makes us both feel empowered. And that's what it's all about.
To be in power, you don't need guns or money or even numbers. You just need the will to do what the Nice Guys on Business won't. Need an education on how to grow your business? The Nice Guys are here to help. Learn about great customer service, networking, and how just being nice can help you prosper. Now, here are your hosts, Doug Sandler and Strickland Bonner.
Wolf Castillo is a mindset and results coach for teens and young adults. Now listen, Nice Guy community, you may not be a teen or a young adult, and if you are, you definitely want to tune in. But if you have teens or young adults, or if you are mentoring anybody, this would be the greatest episode for you to listen to. Wolf is on a mission to empower young people with the tool and resources to design, create, and manifest the life of their dreams as well. If you have kids, today's episode will provide the right motivation to help you get started or to continue the conversation with them. Wolf, welcome to the Nice Guys on Business podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It is such a pleasure. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
I think we had a chance, I want to say it was probably 2 or 3 New Media Summits ago. Now, have you attended just one of those, or did you attend multiple ones?
Yeah, so I attended one, I think it was 2 ago in Orlando. Okay,
great. So we had a chance to meet in, was it Orlando or Tampa? Where the heck was it?
Oh, you know what? You're right. It wasn't Tampa.
I was going to say.
Same vicinity, Tampa, though.
I was going to say, I've been to several, and I know they've been all over the place. So I'm thinking, did I miss a trip to Disney World possibly on one of these shout-outs or trips to Orlando? So I'm glad to have you here, and I'm certainly excited to present your message, because I think of, let's say this is going to be somewhere around episode 1000. So of the 1000 episodes that we have created, what's interesting about it is I don't know that any of them we have spoken to the kids of the people that are listening in our community. So you are in the right place. Your timing is perfect, and I'm glad to have you here, and I'm glad to discuss this topic and your topics with you on today's show.
It's going to be awesome.
So let me start here, Wolf. I was looking at your website, and there you have a really cool quote on it. The only thing that is ultimately real about your journey is the steps that you are taking at this very moment. And let me read that over again, because I completely screwed that up. The only thing that is ultimately real about your journey is the step that you are taking at this moment. And I love that quote from your website, and I want you to share maybe how that fits into your current journey and the journeys of those that you are affecting in your life, and that you're helping mentor.
So it's interesting, the word reality and how we relate to the word reality, I think, is a big telltale of the results in our lives. Meaning, a lot of times we can get caught up in the story of the reality. For example, if I'm sitting inside of a classroom, or if I'm having an interaction, let's just say with my significant other, and we get into it about something, and I say something, she says something, and then we both walk away disempowered. I can get into my head about what was said and create a story, some kind of story that says like, oh, she doesn't love me, or maybe this isn't working out, or you know what, maybe this isn't going to work out in the long run. Versus if I had really stuck to the reality of what she was saying, and maybe the reality of what she was really saying is that I just don't feel like you're hearing the words that are coming out of my mouth. Like, we're having same conversations, but I don't see you taking the actions that you said that you were going to take in order to show me that you really love me. If I really get in my head about it, I'm really disconnected from the reality. So when it's talking about like next steps in reality, I think it's about getting really grounded in what we're committed to, but ultimately making sure that our actions are in alignment with that commitment. Because we can get really thrown off in the wrong direction, and ultimately you can have the best intentions in the world, you can have all the greatest commitments, you can write all the affirmations and put them on your wall, but action is the deciding factor, and the one that's going to distinguish who really does create the life that they truly desire, and the person who's sitting on the sidelines, picking on the person who's actually out there and actually not really doing it what they committed to do in the first place.
So aren't the words and how we interpret the words, isn't that a part of our belief system? And isn't that what we truly believe in? And sometimes isn't that really what our reality is? Or do we need to take it from a different approach or a different perspective? Do we need to look at the words that are coming out of somebody's mouth and look at it from their perspective and determine what they actually mean? Is that our responsibility to do that? Or is that just something that is something that really we should be doing?
I think it always comes back to commitment. Meaning, if what I'm committed to is me being right and you being wrong, and my belief is that as long as I'm right, then I can avoid some kind of pain or discomfort, then no, I really don't care what you think. But if I really have a massive commitment to my relationship with you working, or my relationship with my family working, or my relationship with my teacher, because that's a relationship, like my teacher, my classrooms, like how that works and how that interactions, like if I have a commitment to all of these different interactions working, then I do believe that there is a fundamental need to have perspective. And, that whole saying of, there's two sides to a coin. Well, in my opinion, there's three sides to a coin, because you look at the front, you look at the back, but if you look at the side, you can actually start to see both sides at the same time. And when I can get out of my own myopic, egocentric view of the world and get over in your space and look and see, oh, that's where you're coming from. Now we have empathy, we have understanding, we have compassion, and we can actually come together and create a vision, again, commitment, and begin taking action in lieu of something that makes us both feel empowered. And that's what it's all about.
I love the words, and I love the idea of that. The taking action from the other person's perspective. I'm just concerned about those that might be listening and those that might be advising those that are listening to this. Is that we get so caught up in the story, all of us mature folk and us immature folk, we get so caught up in the story that we tell ourselves that it's sometimes extremely challenging to get out of the moment of what's in your head and put yourself in the perspective, created the ability to see it from somebody else's perspective. So maybe just share just for a moment, how do we take that step to make that happen? And when I say that, somebody is making a comment to me, all I want to do is get in my head and interpret it through my belief system and then respond based upon that. And the reality of it is oftentimes that will create the conflict or the wedge that comes between you and that person that's communicating with you. So what are the steps or the step that is required in order for you to actually hear them and what they are saying?
I'm going to say this one a few times, and obviously you'll say it's an underlying thing of what I'm talking about. And I think it first comes to an awareness. It's step one with any level of transformation is awareness, and to know that you have the awareness that how you've been doing things hasn't worked in the past, getting aligned with the commitment. But ultimately, here's how I'm going to relate it. You don't become fit by going to the gym one time. If you have an overall commitment or goal to improving your overall health and wellness, it takes repetition. And there are going to be some days where you're just going to miss going to the gym. Now, that's not a reason to beat yourself up or to make yourself wrong or to create more story on top of what is already there. But all there is to do is to then bring awareness. So for example, in that instance, right, let's just say me and you, Doug, are having a conversation and we don't see eye to eye. My default response when I'm taking on this new commitment, right, to have you be heard, to have you be seen, and to have you be understood, in that moment, I'm probably still going to feel triggered. The trigger is not necessarily going to go away. And I might not even remember in the moment about my commitment. So then I'm going to do whatever I do and say whatever I say, and then I'll leave the conversation. And it may not come until after, right? Hindsight's a beautiful thing. And, it can also be frustrating because I wish I had thought about that then. But in that scenario, right, if there's multiple scenarios in that one scenario where I leave and I don't deal with it in that moment, I might just need to be with myself. I might need to listen to some, and I'm just it's actually a personal experience I've had when I didn't feel seen, heard, and felt. Like I went to a car and I just threw on some heavy metal music and just really got into the music and let that be a form of self-expression because I felt emotionally and just in general, I felt very blocked. I felt so tight. And once I was able to allow that to get out of me, I was then able to go back to that person and basically tell them, I this is how I feel. And it was really tough for me in that moment to keep this in front of me. And then I nipped in the bud. I was just honest and I was truthful. And I just spoke about how I was frustrated and I was angry or I was this. And I do want to still hear your side in one scenario.
Right, right. So what's so great about what you're saying is that when you get really good at this, and I've had an opportunity to practice this a lot because a part of any relationship I've had, or part of any past relationships that I've had a lot of failures in those relationships, and it's like, okay, how do I improve? I go to this therapy called Imago therapy, and a lot of it is self-reflection, feeling what the other person is feeling, understanding it from their perspective, understanding that they're not angry with me or they're not trying to conflict with me. They're just speaking from a wound that they have had probably for their entire life. And oftentimes I'm coming at this from my wounds perspective as well. So if you remove yourself from that, the better you get at it, the less often you'll have to come back to that conversation, and you'll actually be able to provide the space for that conversation to happen and allow it to happen without feeling triggered or affected by it. Being able to say, I completely understand your perspective. I may not agree, but can we talk about how this might fit into what we have to do together? And sometimes just that alone gives them gives them the side of, hey, he's listening to what I'm saying, and he's all about really trying to understand. Sometimes it's enough to get beyond that conflict or that trigger moment that you have. How do you feel about that?
This is brilliant. And,
okay.
and no, I think it's really great. Actually, I think this is a conversation that inside of I have tons of mentors and coaches because I just demand a lot of myself, and I can also be hard on myself at times. That's a completely different conversation. But something that they brought me present to is the fact that inside of the movement that I was creating was that the only way it was ever going to stay in existence was if I was able to realize, if you imagine a circle, and then imagine subsequent circles that get bigger and bigger around that. At the center of all things in my life is me.
Right.
So that circle might be called self. And then I might go out a circle about that, and I might say, okay, family or intimate relationships. And then I might go to the next one, and it might say organization/company, and then society, and then world. And what they got me to see, and I think is kind of similar to what you were saying, is that at the level of self, a lot of times any commitment bigger than self isn't present or available, right? So at the level of self, when I'm triggered in that moment when we're talking, all I can think about is how I feel. How you feel is not even a factor. It's a no factor. But when I'm able to initially get past whatever initial feelings or triggers that I have, if I can get to, and that's about, seeing that person's perspective, I can get to the level of relationship or the level of society or the level of world, depending on what's needed in that moment. Let's just say it's, back to that original scenario between me and you. If I get to the level of friendship or relationship, and then I think about what my commitment is, then I can start to deal with the fact that in a way I've been being selfish, but not in a way that's serving of really my grander intent, nor yours either. So then from that perspective, it comes back to compassion, empathy. I can have compassion and empathy for myself, but I can also bring it to you as we interact further and just generate conversations that really leave us both feeling better and empowered.
All right. So let's talk about the reality of some of the stuff that you're talking about. And is the reality, and you have more experience than I do with this because you're immersed in this on a daily basis, but do you see people that are young, whether it's kids of those that are listening, those that are being mentored by those in our audience, do you see those people as people that are receiving and accepting what you are saying? Or do you see them as, I feel the way I feel, so that's why I feel it? Because I think that's the opposite of what you're saying. Forget the way you feel. You really have to look at the other side. And most people are thinking, well, shit, this is how I feel. So this is my reality.
So I can say this, one, from a personal point, and then two, as it relates to my clients. Recently, I had an interaction where I was really struggling because I didn't feel as though I was being acknowledged and recognized by a group of people. And it got to the point, truth be told, where I had felt so defeated and beaten down where I just started busting out in tears. And I'm not usually a highly emotional, cry type person, but it got me to that point. And it wasn't until I was able to get past how I felt, because I did have to acknowledge that how I felt was disempowered and not seen and not heard. But once I was able to see past that and to allow myself to, again, in retrospect, think about it, what I realized was that the people who were who in a way, like they were being, so to speak, hard on me, but they were always doing it from the perspective of leadership, and they wanted to help me become a better leader. And how that pertains to, say, people that I work with. And, I've worked with age groups anywhere from like 13 to 14 to like, I was literally just on a call with someone who's 27 years old. So like we're all having the same conversations, whether we believe it or not. It's just, context is a little bit different, and context is everything. But, there's always steps, right? Like if I'm struggling severely with alcoholism, or if I'm struggling severely with anything that has a crippling effect on my life, the first step isn't transformation. The first step is awareness. So in the beginning, there is actually, I would even say sometimes before awareness, there's denial.
Sure.
So like, I don't want to hear what you're telling me because it's contrary to how I feel. Because how I feel in this moment, Doug, is that you just said that I am such a way. And I take that personally because I don't see myself that way. And right now, I'm in denial. But eventually what I find with the people that I work with is I have such a commitment for myself and to the people that I work with of having such a high level of commitment to ownership, meaning I am at the source and I am the cause of all things in my life, even if it doesn't feel that way. If I source myself to all results in my life, I now have a choice in the matter. But if I always feel as though I'm at the effect in the matter, like if you can imagine again, like just imagine 3 squares, or even say 2 squares, input, output, and output obviously is your results. If the input is that I feel as though, something happens, right? So you say something to me and the output is so-and-so, and the result is that I feel bad. If I don't take ownership of that, then I'm at the end result. I'm at the butt end of the joke, and now I don't have a choice in the matter. But if I decide that whatever result occurs, I am the source of that, then now I have a choice in the matter, and I can actually do something about it.
Ultimately, what you're saying, and I believe this to be 100% true, is when somebody says, you hurt my feelings, well, you allowed me to hurt your feelings. You can't hurt my feelings. If I don't let you hurt my feelings, you can hurt my feelings. And I know that sounds like it's so rudimentary, but that's the reality of life, is that we play victim so often in our life. And if we get out of victim mentality or victim role and put ourselves in a position of understanding that we are in control of our own, if you start to understand the anatomy of an emotion, then you will really, really believe exactly what Wolf is saying. I want to ask you this because while I love the idea of having an extended conversation about people's feelings and the way that they believe, we have a semi-short format of a show, and I want to kind of talk a little bit about some typical mistakes that maybe parents or mentors are making with those that are in their lives, the younger folks that are in their lives, when it comes to maybe helping them influence their path. I mean, are there some typical mistakes that you see people are making when it comes to the influence that they put on people?
Depends on whether or not let's give it
to them. Exactly.
Sometimes I feel what happens is though, this isn't always true, but I think that this might be unconsciously happening for a lot of people, whether it's a parent or even a boss or anyone for that matter, because I think it's all interconnected. In some way or another, maybe the parent feels as though that they didn't live up to the hope or the expectation or the goal that they wanted in their life. So in some kind of weird underlying way, they try to I can't think of the word right now, but vicariously. They try to live vicariously through their children. So instead of allowing the child to be their own individual and have agency and to be able to create, a vision or an idea of a job that they want to do, or if they want to go and travel, whatever it is, instead of allowing them to have the space to actually create that as a possibility, they would much rather tell them how it's going to be and not let them have any creative freedom with having that be a possibility. So I think a lot of times we can get in the way of people being able to actualize on their potential because of our fear of them not living up to our perceived belief of what their potential is, versus allowing them to have that vision and then supporting them, letting go of our ego about the situation and just showing up as a parent or a boss or a partner who truly just wants to love and support them no matter what it is.
Right. It's kind of like being okay if someone that is close to you fails without coming to their rescue every time they see it, because we all know that failure makes people stronger. And as long as there is no danger in the failure, physical danger coming to them, let them fail. It's always something that it's okay. And you have to tell them also, and this is the way innovation works very, very well as well, is let them know it's okay to fail. We expect you to, and it's not that we think that you are a failure, but a failure is a great learning tool for you as well. So can you share maybe, if we put it into practical application here, can we share a daily habit for success that you would advise your clients to lean towards when it comes to advising those that are receiving in their life?
Well, actually, just what you just said. What is something that we can give them as a practical thing that they can take on? I think this is so rudimentary. I shouldn't really even have to say it, but let's just say it.
Okay.
So that is even if it's just one thing. Sometimes we just have days where things don't go the way that we plan them to, which is probably more frequently than when things actually go how we'd like them to. But if we can just commit to at least 1 to 3 things, but at least one thing that we really want to accomplish. Let's just say, for example, today, my main thing is I want to finish putting together a speech and the reason why I want to finish that speech is because I'm going to be giving a talk in a week. Okay, well then I'll make sure that that's at the forefront of everything that I do. But looking beyond that, that's so rudimentary. It's so there. What I do want to add to this is that if there is some kind of goal or ambition, don't wait until it's a problem to seek help. Like there's absolutely no excuse to not find a coach or a mentor or just somebody who's been there who can support you. Like seriously, like today, if you have something that you want to take under, stop trying to do this. We were talking about the level of self versus relationship, world, and society. There are literally people who have done it and who are willing to lend a hand. Just reach out. If that means you got to send 10, 20, 50 emails or texts or reach out to somebody on Facebook, just reach out to somebody and be in action about it. Create goals and every single day do little things that chip away at what can seem like a mountain, but make it a possible reality.
I love it. It is sometimes the simple steps that climb the mountain for you, and it is one step at a time, and you can't climb that mountain in one single bound. So taking the smaller steps to be able to do that. Again, great advice, especially for those that are younger in your life that you are mentoring, those that might be your kids. It's they're looking at you and saying, well, not that they ever want to be where you are, because all of our kids probably feel not necessarily totally respecting of those that are in their life. But keep in mind, the single steps, the small steps are the best ones for them to take one step at a time. So you have nothing to promote. So when you came on the show, I asked you, so where do we want to look at this? What are we looking to promote on the other side of it? And I said, a website and anything. And you said, no, I don't have anything to sell. I want to provide this advice. So ultimately, what would be considered a big win for you from my community? If they were to do X, you would be happy with them in particular.
Like I said, it's reaching out. And the main reason why I said I didn't want to promote anything is because I felt as though for the longest time I was doing like, let me promote this thing. And even the fact that there is money attached to it, it draws people away because, whatever mindset or thing that they're dealing with will keep them from then taking that action. So if I could remove a potential barrier, which the biggest barriers are time, money, and, in those realms, if that's the biggest barrier, then if that means that, for example, like reach out to me an email, like I would be willing to provide and would love to provide support and to provide an ear for someone who just wants to be able to know what might my next action step look like for my kid, or how can I encourage my kid more. Reach out to me. I'd love to provide advice. I'm not going to sell anything because I don't want that to be the reason why I can't connect with people, because my commitment to my impact is far bigger than my commitment to making sure that I score a couple dollars off you in the process.
So totally appreciate that. And again, we've had plenty of guests that have come on that have nothing to promote other than goodwill and empower those that are in our community. The best way for you to connect with Wolf would be directly through his social media accounts. I'm going to give you a link. I'm going to put it right in the show notes so that you have access to all of his social media accounts. It'll be a single page, have all the links right there. And again, Wolf, thank you so much for your inspiration and your message. And I appreciate what you're doing, especially for I want to say kids. Every time I say this, I want to say kids, but the reality of it is there are some people that aren't kids that need to hear this message as well. And many of the things you say, I feel like, wow, so mature of you to know this stuff, even as someone that is a little bit younger than I am, but just to be able to hear this stuff and be able to say, I pulled some great information from this episode, even if I just pulled away the fact that keep doing what I'm doing, because what I'm doing is actually the right way to get perspective in life. And it is my true reality.
I love that.
So thank you I appreciate it. And thank you for being on the show, Wolf, very much.
Absolutely. Thank you to everyone who listened, and absolutely hats off to you for having this be a possibility for anybody who's listening. this is an amazing podcast. I've listened to a few, but you guys do an amazing job.
Well, thanks, Wolf. I appreciate you saying that. And Nice Guy community, I appreciate you being in my community so very much. And again, special thanks to Wolf Castillo. All of his information, including access to those social media channels that he has on our website or on our show notes, will be right there in the show notes. Steve O'Brien, go ahead and take us out of here.
For the Nice Guys on Business, I'm Steve O'Brien. Over 600 episodes, and they're still asking me to do their voiceovers. I'm kind of like Flo on those Progressive commercials. I bet she makes a hell of a lot more than me, though. Doug and Strick don't pay shit.